Hey, Husker fans, welcome to another episode of the Husker Big Red podcast with Chris Peterson and Danny Gillette. As always, go Big Red.
Welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette. And we're back here after a big win for the Huskers on Sunday night over Michigan State. So it's good to be back. Danny, how you doing this morning?
Good. I'm sensing maybe some big football recruiting wins in the near future as well. So it's a good time to be a Husker fan. A lot of news, probably a lot more news this week. And I can't believe we're that much closer to early signing day.
Hopefully the Huskers don't fumble the visit like I kind of
Uh-huh.
fumbled with my microphone there for a second, was talking when I was on mute, but got it sorted out there after a second. But at any rate, everybody, welcome back to another episode of our podcast. Before we get into it, if you haven't already done us a big favor by hitting the subscribe button, please do that. We definitely appreciate all the interaction, everybody, liking the videos and offering up your comments. So please keep doing that. And if you haven't, please subscribe as our list keeps growing here. But anyways, not to mess around, we got, like you said, Danny, you kind of teased the point there. We got some big recruiting news, transfer portal recruiting news over the weekend. Things have been progressing with Kyle McCord and with Julian Fleming. And on Sunday, it was confirmed by multiple outlets that these guys are coming in for a visit this week. So what are your initial impressions of that? What does that mean for Nebraska?
Get it done. Do not let them leave the campus without, getting their commitment. Get it done. Transfer portal quarterbacks, aka Kyle McCord, are flying off the proverbial shelves right now. Nebraska needs a playmaker. I know people have their reservations about McCord. I did, watching him a little bit last year as well, but the bottom line is he's an impact playmaker. He's better than what we have at the quarterback position right now, and I think he's the type of quarterback that can help us, take on this tougher schedule next season and get it done. Don't waste any time, because if we don't land him, somebody else will.
Yeah, it might be, up to got to make sure the 1890 can, hold their end of the deal. But I have to believe that, these guys wouldn't be, making the visit if they were worried about the NIL thing. I think it's honestly, I really, it seems like more with transfer portal guys, they might take a visit or two, but usually, a lot of times the first visit and they're done. It's like you said, they need to get this commitment done. There hasn't been a lot of other, programs interested that I've really heard. I mean, I've heard Syracuse, I've heard Rutgers, I've heard Pittsburgh. None of those teams. I mean, Nebraska should be able to beat out those teams for a recruit. And you look at this Kyle McCord. I mean, he was a 5-star quarterback coming out of high school. 3,000 yards last year, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. So he was really productive. And yeah, he played with Marvin Harrison Jr. and some really talented players, but I mean, he still put some really, good balls out on tape. I mean, go watch, if you have any doubts about him, I mean, go watch the Michigan game. I mean, sure, you can look at the stats and say, oh, he threw 2 interceptions, but I mean, anybody who's critical of his performance in that game didn't watch the game because it was part of the reason they had an opportunity to win that game. I mean, he was under pressure. They didn't really run the football that much. When they did run the ball well, and then they basically abandoned it and put the game on his shoulders against a really good defense on the road. And I mean, Marvin Harrison did make some, a couple of good receptions in that game, but he only had 5 catches. So it's not like it was all Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, he made some really big throws. And, so I think he would be a huge get for Nebraska football.
Absolutely, and I think Julian Fleming, as a package deal, would be really good for Nebraska football as well. He had 26 catches for 270 yards last season, but a guy by the name of Marvin Harrison Jr. Stood out at the wide receiver position for Ohio State last year, and so did Emeka Ibuka. So I don't really, you know, when you have a chance to play for Ohio State and you're playing with those 2 guys, I mean, you take the, lower statistics with a grain of salt. And, Fleming as a recruit was the top wide receiver in the 2020 class, the 4th overall player nationally in the entire class. And, he's the 4th overall wide receiver in the transfer portal rankings. And so getting him as well would be a major, major boost, 20th overall in the transfer rankings, and you know, we need playmakers at the wide receiver position. We have a lot of, projected playmakers with raw talent, but Fleming can get the job done. And, I wouldn't mind, bringing in McCord and then also bringing in somebody that he knows to get comfortable within the offense. Because at the end of the day, we need to move the ball. And if a connection with Fleming will be able to help that, then I'm all for it.
Yeah, and Julian Fleming, honestly, I think he could, if he declared for the NFL draft, he would get drafted. I have
Yeah.
no doubt
Uh-huh.
about that because you mentioned a couple of the guys he played with. They also had Jackson Smith and Jigba, and before that, they had Garrett Wilson and shoot, I'm blanking on the other
Chris
guy's name, but
Olave?
yeah. So I mean, literally, he's had to play. He's had now when Marv goes in the first round. I mean, that's 3 or 4 first round receivers he's played with. So I mean, it's not like this guy isn't talented. He just played with some incredibly good
Yeah.
receivers. I mean, even if like, look, if this guy, if he transferred to Michigan, he'd be their best receiver. I mean, he would be basically on any Big Ten team but Ohio State, he'd be the best receiver on the team. I mean, essentially, in my opinion, because you look at, I mean, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, none of these programs have anybody that's as good as this guy. And Nebraska, I mean, Malachi Coleman, I think, could be definitely in that conversation. But I think Julian Fleming just is hoping he can go somewhere, be the true number one for a season and get like 1,000 yards, which he's definitely capable of, especially, if he knows he's playing with the legit quarterback like Kyle McCord, who he already has, those connections with. I mean, he could come in here and have a season like, Trey Palmer or Samori Toure did and really improve his draft stock. So I think it would be a smart move for him. And like you said, it would be a great move for Nebraska to really get, a big time. I mean, these are both 5-star players, coming out of high school. And it's not like they didn't have, productive careers. I mean, I know Julian Fleming has only had about 1,000 career yards, but still, he's still produced at this level. And Kyle McCord obviously just had a 3,000-yard season. So it would be it's not like these guys have sat on the bench at Ohio State and haven't played. Like they've played, they've produced. Julian Fleming had one of the best catches in that Michigan-Ohio State game. So I think these would just massively upgrade the offensive talent level for Nebraska overnight.
Absolutely. And, you take a look at, you know, even the social media posts. Danny Kalen liked, the fact that McCord and Fleming were visiting on Instagram. So I don't think, these moves would deter Kalen or anything like that. I think it gives Kalen a chance to develop, and it also, you know, say Nebraska has a winning season with McCord and Fleming, then you have something to sell as a program, and you can help Kalen get better weapons for the future and things like that. And we already have a pretty good wide receiver room. So, I mean, I can only look at any of this as a positive, and I'm just hoping they seal the deal because, you know, it sounds good on paper, but I won't believe it until they're on the field. And, for what it's worth, the 1890 initiative has started to really post a lot of content on social media now. So I think they're getting the message as well that they need to get this done, and hopefully they will.
Yeah, and they do need to wrap this up with Kyle McCord because I really don't see him getting Julian Fleming without McCord.
No.
And then you mentioned some of the dominoes have started to fall. I mean, Blake Shapen's off the board, Dylan Gabriel. There's still some, like Will Howard is out there, but there hasn't been much talk, between Nebraska and I haven't heard much about Will Howard at all. I'm not sure. I'd
No.
have to double check if he visited anywhere this week, but I know it sounds like Tyler Van Dyke from Miami visited Wisconsin this weekend. So it seems like that seems like a good fit to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that like if Nebraska misses on Kyle McCord, there's still lots of guys out there, and there will be more players out there. I believe it's, eventually. Because some guys like Jeff Sims, I mean, he hasn't entered his name into the portal yet, and I think it's because he's just waiting till he's going to graduate because then, which will happen soon, and then then he can transfer without sitting out the 2 years or without sitting out a year. So there's going to be more guys that probably do enter the transfer portal, especially, it's like with Nebraska too. If they got Kyle McCord, that could cause, Chuba Purdy to transfer. I mean, like with Oregon, Dylan Gabriel transferred there, and Ty Thompson, another kid that was a 5-star, I think in either 21 or 22, pretty good quarterback. He just entered the transfer portal. So I mean, like maybe if you don't get Kyle McCord, you could pivot to somebody like that. But I feel like in terms of proven guys in the transfer portal, there's not many after Kyle McCord, at least right
No,
now.
not right now. And I think his style would be perfect for what Marcus Satterfield wants to run offensively. He kind of just stays in the pocket, makes his reads, makes his throws, and I think that's what they kind of want to run more so than what they did last year. So I think it would be a good offensive fit. I don't think it's just for getting Kyle McCord because he's a good quarterback. I think Kyle McCord would be a good get because he fits what the offense wants to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think people get too caught up in this idea that Satterfield and Rule want like a running quarterback. I mean, if you
Yeah.
look at Baylor, I mean, he played with the pro style quarterbacks. I mean, Rule has shown he can do it both ways. I mean, it's nice if you can run, and I think Kyle McCord could run if he had to.
Yeah.
The Ohio State just doesn't do that. I mean, it was like CJ Stroud never ran. He ran a little bit in the Sugar Bowl against Georgia last year, so he can do it. It's just not part of what Ryan Day likes to do. That's just, for whatever reason, he doesn't want to run his quarterback. And I mean, look in the Big Ten, it is not, guys get hurt. I mean, Nebraska fans have seen that with, Taylor Martinez, with Adrian Martinez. I mean, even with Heinrich Harburg this year. I mean, Jeff Sims. I mean, when he was trying to run the ball this year, it's hard to have a running quarterback last in the Big Ten Conference. And at the end of the day, you need to be able to throw the football to win games. I mean, that's just so that's why I still like the idea of, if you want to play bully ball sometimes, put Harburg in there. I mean, let him be a fullback / quarterback / whatever on special teams. Just let him be physical and run at somebody. So I'm not worried about, long story short, I'm not worried about Kyle McCord, not being able to run or do any of those things. Sure, I like the escapability, and
Yeah.
I do think he's got, he's not Dan Marino. I mean, let's not act like this guy can't. He doesn't have one leg. He can move. He can avoid. He can. He is a little bit. What I will say though, and when we were first talking about him, is you do have to protect him. I mean, like any quarterback is not as good with protection, but some are better. Like Tom Brady was incredible at dipping and dodging in the pocket and
He
getting
was.
himself back into a throwing motion. Whereas like Jared Goff, if you get pressure on him, his footwork falls apart and he throws things
Yep.
short. And that's kind of what Kyle McCord, when he struggles, he gets pressure and he throws things short, which that's not a rare thing to happen for a quarterback. So you do have to protect him like most guys. But I will say, if he doesn't get protection, he can be a little bit like Jared Goff.
Well, I think, and people brought this up in the chat on Saturday too, and I totally agree that we were worried about the running back depth for next season. But I think if you run an offense with Kyle McCord as your quarterback, that doesn't put as much pressure on the running backs, and I definitely think that counts for something, especially when you talk about the durability of players. And I think when you look also to just kind of to build off that point, when you look at the offensive line commitments and the guys that they've been able to land, for example, like Bricks, Preston, combined with what we have now, you know, they're kind of built for more of a um, um, pro scheme as opposed to a running quarterback. Like you could see the complementary, football and the complementary, additions with what the offense is trying to do. Because we saw it last year a little bit, and it drove me crazy. Satterfield would try to, make Heinrich Harburg the second coming of Patrick Mahomes, and it just wasn't it just wasn't working. So he would finally run the football after I screamed at my TV, and but there was one other point I had to make, and I totally forgot what it was. Oh yeah, a lot of times with running quarterbacks, their throwing is limited. I mean, that's been the case for Nebraska for a number of years. Adrian Martinez was decent at it. Sims, he didn't exactly throw well on the run, never mind at all, to be quite honest. Harburg, ran well, but couldn't throw well. So a lot of times when you have a running quarterback, the throwing limitations are very evident as well. So, I mean,
Yeah, and I mean, I do. I think the offensive line, yeah, it's going to be in a good spot. I mean, I like Gunnar Gatula and some of those other guys too. And like you said, I think Grant Bricks could play right away. At least be like a swing tackle right away, like somebody if you had to play him, you wouldn't feel bad about it. I feel like he definitely has the opportunity, and the offensive line. We still haven't heard like 100% from like Bryce Benhurt and Turner Corcoran. Nebraska did reach out to one of the Texas A&M offensive linemen. I'm trying to think of his name, but he already, I think he basically already eliminated them. But at any rate, so they
Well, I
have,
think he has like 26 offers. So
yeah, Bizanito or whatever. But
yeah,
I read somewhere, which of course it was on Twitter, that he had narrowed it down and Nebraska wasn't in. So you never know, but it does show that if it's the right fit, I think they will add some pieces there. But right now, just got to get that quarterback done. So hopefully McCord comes in and they get this commitment done, and then they could really focus on building around him, and that would be the best situation, I think, going forward.
and for what it's worth, Donovan Rayola's contract expired on December 31st. He just got a 1-year extension for next season with a pay raise from $325,000 to $500,000. So, I mean, I think that shows that the coaching staff and the program believes in what he can do. And I was ready to write him off last year, and he's starting to prove me wrong. So I'm happy to be proven wrong. Good for you, Donnie.
Yeah, he did a nice job this year. So congrats to him. And let's switch over to the hardwoods. So last night, I mean, it was for December game. It was a big game for Nebraska after losing the previous two, especially to Minnesota. I mean, they were looking at 0-2 in the Big Ten, and yeah, we were sitting there. I think it was tied. I can't remember what the score was tied, but yeah, neither of us felt confident in Nebraska, and but
No.
they pulled it out. I mean, Bryce Williams made the huge shot. Sam Hoiberg did a nice job defensively down the stretch, and Casey hit some big threes. Jawan Gary gutted it out. Rink Mass,
First
made some.
start. He needs to start permanently, I think,
I
honestly.
think so too. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I like Josiah Leak, but I just feel like bring him off the bench because man, if you got Gary and Williams and then Casey, that's a lot of offensive firepower.
And bringing a league off the bench would be just another weapon to have. I don't think a league's a bad player at all. It's not to say, take him out because he's horrible. I think he's good. It's just, you got so many weapons that you can mix and match with, and this is the depth you didn't have last year. So, no, Gary played awesome. I mean, when
And he
he's
has played
healthy,
awesome.
yeah, he has played awesome. I remember the Duquesne game as well. He really stepped up. But when he's healthy, he can make, excuse me, quite the impact. And that was very evident last night.
Yeah, when I think what I like about him is he can play, him and Bryce, I feel like could both play like a small ball four, and they both, because Gary did that last year for most of the season before he got hurt. So he can guard that position. And then the other thing is like, those fours have to guard him too, and he can shoot the three, he can attack the basket, he can score down low. So I feel like, you're kind of dictating how the other team's going to play. But one thing I do like about Nebraska is they can, if you go big, they can go big. If you want to go small, they can go small. They can do a lot of different things this year. And it would just, yeah, it was really awesome to see Bryce Williams come up with that. And he played really well. He was bringing the ball up. They handled the pressure of Michigan State. They had less than 10 turnovers. So yeah, it was a big win, and they needed that. I feel like now they're 8-2, 1-1 in the conference, and I know Michigan State's 4-5 right now. I know the record's not great, but this is going to be an NCAA tournament team. Like I just, I'll be very surprised if Tom Izzo doesn't get this right by the end of the year. So I think that this win is going. I mean, right now they're ranked in the top 40 of the Ken Palm. So as long as they stay in that range, it's going to maybe be a quad one win for Nebraska, especially if Michigan State, gets things going. And so the Duquesne's win, wasn't a bad win. They still need to obviously get some wins on the road, but at any rate, you're sitting here. If you could beat Kansas State, you'd be in a really good spot. But outside of that, I think they've got a couple other games that aren't too difficult. And so if you win at least one or two of those, you're going into the Big Ten play with about 10 wins, and that's I think where this team needs to be.
They shot over 60% in the second half too, which helped. And it was good to see them, um, make their free throws as well. This has been one of the better Nebraska basketball free throw shooting teams that I've seen in quite some time. And they also showed that they could close a game, and that was something that I kind of wondered. Does this team know how to close? Can this team close a game? They did. They couldn't against Minnesota. They did a great job, against Michigan State on Sunday, and it was good to see them, being able to shut the door, so to speak, because historically, Nebraska Fred Hoiberg teams have not been able to close out games. So this was a good showing on that end as well.
And so now you have momentum. They're going into Manhattan on Sunday. So it's a road game against Kansas State, which is a quad one opportunity. And then if they after that they've got North Dakota and South Carolina State at home, 2 bye games. So I mean they should go into Big Ten play with at least 10 wins. But if they could get that Kansas State victory, then they would be looking at 11-2 with wins over Kansas State and Michigan State already. So that would be like you couldn't ask for a better start than that for Nebraska. So as ugly as this last week was with that Minnesota loss, they flipped the script, and it's just crazy. It's like everybody. It's just funny to me that leading up to that, everyone's like, "Oh man, Fred, it's not gonna, this isn't gonna work." And it's like the second everybody counted Fred and this team out, they came out with maybe the best win of the Fred Hoiberg era. I think this one's probably right up there with the Creighton one, just in terms of the importance of it. And you snap what 11-game win streak, beat a team you haven't beat in 7 years. So it's crazy how sometimes you need a low to hit a new high in sports. So good for Fred and good for everybody on this team. They really needed the win, and it was a gutsy one. So congrats, guys.
Yeah, and they played more of their game. They played more of their slow physical basketball. Like I thought Minnesota, for whatever reason, took Nebraska out of their game last week. I think Nebraska played more true to their style on Sunday, and the results paid off. And it was really great to see them get that win. And you know, actual, and I don't want to say actual, but second half season conference play is coming up quick. So this was also good to get under their belt as the conference play begins in what, about a month or so?
Yeah, the start of about 3 more weeks. So they've got 3 non-conference games, and then after the start of the year, it's all Big Ten play. So they have 18 conference games left.
Wow, coming up quick. And they've had some early tests here, and hopefully they'll be ready. I feel like this team is built for, the conference slate a little bit better than in comparison to other years.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, they can play, different styles. It was good to see Casey get going last night, hit some threes. So yeah, I feel like they're in a good spot going into conference play and this matchup on Sunday against Kansas State. And yeah, that'll be a big opportunity for this team. It would be nice to get. It's always good to have one big non-conference win under your belt, like on your resume. Nebraska doesn't really have that right now, and this would give them a big opportunity to get that. So hopefully they can do it. It's not obviously going to kill their resume. It means you're going to have to do more in Big Ten play. Like if they get that win over Kansas State, they might have to just get like 10-10 in Big Ten play and a win in the tournament, and that might be enough. So pretty big game for December basketball at any rate.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of want these games being in December. You don't want to be out of it by December like we have been in previous years. So it's good to see, and it's hopefully. I still believe this is a NCAA tournament team. We'll see once January and February come around, but I like where they sit right now, all things considered.
Definitely big win last night, and then we'll wrap it up here, and we'll talk some Nebraska volleyball. Another epic performance on Saturday. It was a very tight match against Arkansas. They had to rally in set one, and got a lead in set two. Won that one pretty comfortably, but it was looking like that was maybe going to go 5 sets there for a minute, but huge win for Nebraska. Merritt Beeson with a legendary performance. I think she had 18 kills, like 12 digs, 8 blocks. Becca Alik had 12 blocks, set a new Nebraska tournament record. So, I mean, she was spectacular. Their block was really effective against Arkansas, which wasn't a super tall team. Harper Murray, delivered again in the third set. So just a Bergen Riley, I mean, had big play after big play. So just really fun to watch this team and to watch them achieve another big one of their goals this season.
Yeah, the train keeps on rolling for Nebraska volleyball. It's almost like the Alabama of volleyball here, but this is even with the freshmen and some of the new faces, this is still a battle-tested group, and it's good to see them be able to get the job done when it matters most. And the train keeps on rolling for Coach Cook and company, and you know four four national championships under Cook that this program has had, and it's just you wish other Nebraska sports had this level of consistency, but it's just great to see the volleyball program be able to seal the deal once again. And it's just, a true testament of what happens when everybody buys in and when everybody, is, wants to win, and it's not about one individual but the entire team.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch this team. What would be nice, on the same topic is I wish that ESPN would do some better coverage. Too many of these Sweet 16 matches on, in the afternoon. I mean, just in weird spots. Not, they're not giving enough time for the matches, so you're having to catch some of the other matches on ESPN Plus. It's just, this
Which
is
is
a
annoying.
great yeah, this is a great sport, and they need to give it the proper attention. And if they don't want to, then give it to Fox or somebody, because the Big Ten Network has done a great job with its volleyball coverage, and it's reaped the rewards of that. And so I think, like, if ESPN doesn't want to give volleyball the time of day, like, give it to somebody who will, because it's a great sport and it's only growing. And it's kind of like, with the women's basketball. I mean, they are showing the championship match on ABC Sunday, which hopefully Nebraska will be playing in. But if you promote it, like, people will watch it. So that's just my opinion on it. Nebraska's playing Pittsburgh on Thursday, and then the other semifinal is going to be Texas and Wisconsin. So either way, if Nebraska makes it to the championship match, it's going to be a hated rival on the other side, at least from the fan base perspective. It would be last time they played in the championship match, the national championship match, they lost to Wisconsin, so that there would be kind of some irony there. But they did beat Wisconsin at home earlier this year, but split with them. So, it's great to get to the Final Four. Winning that national championship, though, is still far from a sure thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you look at all the players that are going to come back next year as well. This would be a nice test to really kind of help build that, winning mindset and, winning pedigree for the program moving forward. And, obviously you want to win, but no matter the result, I think, Nebraska volleyball is set up well for the future.
It definitely is a lot of talent on one of the best coaches in the country. Maybe Trev Alberts calls him the best volleyball coach in the country. It's hard to disagree.
I would go with
Um,
the best, yeah.
I wouldn't trade him for anybody. I'll say that. I would take John Cook over anybody. So I'm glad he's on our side. And I'm glad that you guys hung out with us for another episode of our podcast. Like I said at the beginning, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. Please get into the comment section, hit the like button. That all helps us out with our content. We'll be back, I believe, on Thursday for another episode. And as always, guys, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.